When you're trying to figure out how to reduce chronic pain, there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for everybody. The contents of your brain are unique to you, and therefore, so is your experience of pain. However, there is one question you can ask to figure out your own road to recovery. What does the pain mean to you? That's the question that describes the biopsychosocial approach in a nutshell. To figure out how to reverse pain, you have to become aware of all the filters your brain is using to create it in the first place. We know from several studies that thoughts and feelings play a critical role in chronic pain. You may have heard the phrase, your thoughts become your feelings, and your feelings become your actions. This holds true inside of your body, too. Your thoughts, both conscious and unconscious, produce how you feel about a situation, and your physiology takes its cues from your feelings, whether they are rational or not. Let's take a look at all of the filters your brain uses to determine your thoughts, then feelings, and eventually physiology. First, we have your thoughts about the pain itself. When you live with chronic pain, it's hard not to think about it, and it's perfectly natural to worry about how long it'll last, whether you'll ever be able to get back to the life you had before. That being said, persistent negative thought patterns about your pain can do you much more harm than good. Physicians and scientists have long studied the process of pain catastrophizing, a pattern of thinking that gives constant worry and attention to pain and jumps to worst-case scenarios. Across conditions, pain catastrophizing has been shown to predict pain intensity, disability, and psychological distress about pain. There's a questionnaire researchers used to determine how much of a pain catastrophizer someone is. It was developed and validated in the mid-90s by Sullivan, Bishop, and Pivac. I'll read the questions for you now, and you can decide for yourself whether these statements feel true for you. Be as honest as you can in your assessment. Here are the statements. When I am in pain, I worry all the time about whether the pain will end. When I am in pain, I feel I can't go on. When I am in pain, it's terrible, and I never think it's going to get any better. When I am in pain, it's awful, and I feel that it overwhelms me. When I am in pain, I feel that I can't stand it anymore. When I am in pain, I become afraid that the pain will get worse. When I am in pain, I keep thinking of other painful events. When I am in pain, I anxiously want the pain to go away. When I am in pain, I can't seem to keep it out of my mind. When I am in pain, I keep thinking about how much it hurts. When I am in pain, I keep thinking about how badly I want the pain to stop. When I am in pain, there's nothing I can do to reduce the intensity of the pain. When I am in pain, I wonder whether something serious may happen. If many of these statements sound familiar, that's okay. It just means that your brain is using these thought patterns in its decisions about pain. And luckily, with some tools and patience, you can work to change that. In addition to pain catastrophizing patterns, your thoughts and feelings about coping with pain can also play a role. You may have heard of the term locus of control before. Someone with a strong internal locus of control has a belief in their own ability to influence the events and outcomes in their life. Someone with an external locus of control tends to view the events and outcomes in their life as a result of luck, fate, and the actions of other people. Controlling for all other variables, it's been shown that patients who have a stronger internal locus of control report lower pain intensities and less frequent pain. They also tend to be more engaged in multidisciplinary treatment approaches, which require patients to do a lot of exercises and introspection on their own time. As a result, these approaches tend to be more effective for them than for those who believe they have no control over their pain. This pattern holds true for other forms of treatment as well. Your beliefs about your own ability to handle the treatment and whether it will work can impact the actual efficacy. But it's not just your thoughts and feelings about pain that make a difference. It's also the thought patterns that make up your general mindset. Your brain filters the experience of pain through the very same personality tendencies and biases that it filters everything else through. Each social interaction you have, each stressful life event, and every minute detail of your everyday life. It's long been thought that your general style of thinking and coping is correlated with how likely it is that your pain will become chronic. That's not to say that any of this is your fault. Just the way in which your brain processes thoughts and feelings does make an impact. Just like having negative thoughts about pain can lead to increased pain, so can a general pessimistic outlook. But there are also other, less obvious personality tendencies that are thought to perpetuate and sometimes even cause severe physical symptoms. Think about whether you identify with more than one of these. Perfectionism, holding yourself to an almost impossible standard of quality in everything that you do. Goodism, an intense desire to be well-liked, often resulting in overextending yourself for others and putting your own needs last. Serial caretaking, constantly being in situations where you're dependent upon for someone else's well-being. Low self-esteem, never truly feeling like you are inherently enough. Strong inner critic, having an inner voice that's constantly critiquing or tearing down everything you do. Bottling up emotions, a tendency to push down or power through any strong feelings for fear they may make you appear weak or out of control. Hypervigilance, any sort of neurotic or obsessive tendencies and a strong desire to feel in control at all times. I should mention that these tendencies aren't inherently good or bad. I'm simply pointing out that your brain is using these thought patterns to create your experience of pain. The reason these tendencies are all considered more of a risk factor is because they contribute to the brain's perception of stress. Now, stress is not an event or stimulus that happens in your life. It's actually your brain's judgment that what is happening exceeds your resources. Perhaps that means it exceeds your time constraints, your emotional capacity, or even your coping ability. When the brain feels that it is under stress, physiological changes take place. Sometimes that means creating pain out of nowhere. Sometimes it means activating a trusty old pain pathway that your brain is already familiar with. Here's one example of how this works with the personality traits I just listed. If you hold yourself to an unrealistically high standard of perfectionism at work, your brain will constantly make the judgment that the demands placed on you are greater than the resources you have to accomplish them at the level of perfection you require. Eventually, this wires your brain to be in a constant state of stress, which has serious physiological consequences. Okay, so your thoughts about pain and your general personality biases both play a role in shaping your experience of pain. Another filter you might not have considered is past stress. Your entire perception of reality is filtered through your own personal lens of past experiences. Everyone's is. So it makes sense that your brain would take these into account when deciding whether or not it feels safe. There's a lot of evidence that this filter is actually one of the most influential when it comes to pain. Any formative experience that shapes your way of thinking can be roped into this category, but it is particularly important for those who have experienced serious trauma or adverse childhood events. This includes physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, physical or emotional neglect, violence, substance abuse, or mental illness in the household, parental divorce, or the incarceration of someone in the household. There is a significant overlap between people who have experienced these kind of events and people who develop chronic pain. And studies have shown that adverse childhood events can lead to an increased risk of developing conditions like migraine or fibromyalgia. It's been shown that trauma can physically alter your brain, which is why it makes sense that these past events would factor into how you experience pain today. It's also very common for serious pain conditions to appear out of the blue or worsen right around the same time as a big life event, like a death in the family, the loss of a job, or the change in status of an important relationship. Dr. Howard Schubiner has been helping his patients connect the dots between emotional experiences and physical pain for years. Here's how he explains what's happening.
The studies clearly show that people who have an emotionally upsetting event, the parts of the brain that are activated are the exact same ones that are activated by a physical injury. So that shows us the mechanism by which emotional pain can create physical pain. And so all those things are happening, and then the pain becomes learned, and that vicious cycle ensues, and over time the pain just gets worse rather than getting better.
If you experienced trauma and now experience chronic pain, that doesn't mean that you are doomed to be in pain forever. It just means that this experience may have changed the way your brain works a little bit. It's possible that these past experiences now make your brain feel unsafe a great deal of the time, and those changes could be perpetuating your pain. Again, there are tools to help you reduce this effect, and in fact, awareness is one of them. Simply acknowledging that there may be a connection between past events and current pain levels can sometimes be helpful. There's still one more big filter the brain uses in creating your experience of pain that I want to cover, and that is social context. Chronic pain can feel incredibly disruptive to the course of your life. It can make it hard to focus at work or even make it impossible for you to do your job. This might mean you're now in a very different financial position than you once were. The pressure of constant pain and the search for answers can create extreme tension in your social relationships too, especially a spousal relationship. You may lose the ability to do things you once loved doing, like going for a run or even playing with your kids. You may even lose the ability to perform simple tasks, like carrying a bag of groceries. All of that, combined with a fruitless search for relief, can result in symptoms of depression, anxiety, panic attacks. It's been estimated that a chronic pain diagnosis takes a similar emotional toll as a cancer diagnosis. This enormous sense of loss is a huge weight, and it's completely natural to feel this weight. But even so, over-focusing on these perceived losses is linked with increased pain intensity, frequency, and duration. More troublingly, this can also lead to a sense of victimhood seeping into your core identity, and that can lead to all sorts of changes in your core beliefs and thought patterns and continue to fuel the intense cycle of pain right back up. So back to our original question, what does the pain mean to you? And I want to stress that no matter what the answers are, there are tools to help you. You just need to get honest with yourself about what might be contributing here. Let's review some of the filters that your brain uses before it makes a decision about whether or not to create pain. Part of it is influenced by your thoughts about pain itself, like, I'm worried that it'll never go away. Part of it's influenced by your personality tendencies and how much it takes for your brain to perceive that the demands placed on you are greater than the resources you have to manage them. It could also be influenced by your past experiences and trauma. And finally, social context, how the pain shapes your relationships, career, and social identity, play a role as well.